Hey there, and welcome to this explainer brought to you by Forge College. Today, we're taking a massive leap forward in our smart contract security track. Specifically, we're diving into the Advanced Security Patterns module to talk about a major mindset shift, the principles of defensive programming. If you've ever woken up in a cold sweat, just agonizing over how to harden your smart contracts against unpredictable, buggy, or outright malicious inputs, well, you're exactly where you need to be. Our mission today is to give you the mental models to ensure that when bad inputs inevitably hit your code, it fails safely, instead of locking up or draining user funds. We're going to keep things fun, but make no mistake, mastering this is an absolute game changer for how you write code. Okay, so let's tie this back to our last lesson on access control libraries. Think of access control like a massive, intimidating bouncer standing outside an exclusive nightclub. The bouncer checks IDs and handles the who is actually allowed inside part of the equation, right? That's your only owner modifiers. But what if a verified VIP gets past the bouncer, walks in, and immediately starts smashing the furniture? The bouncer at the door doesn't really help you then. And that is exactly where defensive programming steps in. While access control dictates who can execute a function, defensive programming dictates what is actually safe for them to do once they're inside. So, if we want to get formal for a second, defensive programming is basically the set of deliberate checks and fail-safe defaults you intentionally weave right into your contract code. The goal is super specific. Ensure that unexpected inputs, weird transaction orderings, or just strange environmental states cause your contract to fail safely and predictably, rather than corrupting balances. We literally have to code with the explicit, honestly borderline paranoid assumption that external inputs and the blockchain environment itself are highly adversarial. You can never, ever just assume an input is valid because the shiny front-end UI should have formatted it right. The blockchain is the Wild West, folks. Treat every input like a potential threat.
All right, let's move into section 1, the unbreakable vault. This is going to be our mental model.
To make this whole abstract concept a bit more tangible, I want you to stop thinking of your smart contract as just lines of code on a screen. Instead, picture it as a highly secure, purely mechanical physical vault. This vault holds valuable assets, internal state logic, and operational controls. So external inputs, those are the keys handed to us at the vault door. The contract state variables are the complex internal gears that have to be perfectly aligned to allow any movement. The invariants, the absolute core truths of your contract, like total supply matching total balances, those are your mechanical safeties. And finally, the circuit breaker is the physical fuse you can trip to just freeze all the motors in a total emergency. Keep this map in your head, and placing defensive checks becomes totally intuitive.
Mechanically speaking, we process our defenses in a strict chronological order. First up is input validation. We prioritize checking the keys at the door. If a key is malformed, or an amount is 0, or an address is empty, we reject it immediately at the entrance with a clear revert error. See ya. Second is state validation. Once we know the key is actually good, we validate the internal state to stop any illegal gear movements. We check if the contract is in the right phase, or if the user actually has the balance they're trying to spend. You literally never move the gears until the state is 100% verified.
Which brings us to section 2, building the safety net, where we plan for the absolute worst-case scenario. See, defensive programming isn't just about building giant walls. It's about building a safety net for when your assumptions inevitably shatter. And the most critical place for that net is how we handle moving money, the highest-stakes gear in our vault. You should absolutely always implement a pull-over-push model. Pushing payments, where your contract automatically sends funds to a list of users, is kind of like stuffing a paycheck into a notoriously risky, unguarded mailbox. If just one mailbox rejects the mail or executes a malicious fallback function, the entire delivery process reverts. No good. Instead, use a pull model. Record what the user is owed internally, and force them to come to the bank and pick up their own paycheck. This dodges unexpected reentrancy attacks and puts the gas costs completely on the caller. Now, beyond moving money, we need fail-safe defaults for the contract's entire lifecycle. Let's think about deployment for a second. By defaulting to a lockdown, fully paused state the literal second the contract goes live on-chain, we drastically limit the blast radius if our initial configuration assumptions break. It's like having a giant physical emergency brake on our vault's assembly line. You force the admin to explicitly finalize the setup to release that brake. And if a variable isn't explicitly set, it should always default to its safest, most conservative threshold. Make faults highly visible and localized so that silent, cascading failures are basically mathematically impossible. All right, section 3, real-world application. Let's look at a token sale. Abstract concepts are cool, but let's apply this to a real, on-chain token sale. Imagine a contract with functions to buy tokens, withdraw funds, and set the token price. A secure purchase function executes a series of interlocking checks chronologically. First, input validation. We strictly require the purchase amount to be greater than 0. Second, state validation. We check our internal gears to make sure the token sale's actually in the active phase, not setup or closed. Third, we apply a rate-limiting cooldown to stop abuse. And finally, when it's time to distribute those assets, we rely entirely on that pull-withdraw pattern we just went over. Executing this strict sequence is going to save you countless hours of debugging and prevent those terrifying edge case accounting mismatches.
Let's zoom in on that third step for a moment, rate limiting. Here at Forge College, we emphasize thinking of these limits as internal sensors and alarms. Because look, a single attacker with a clever script can just spam your buy function, overwhelmingly hitting your off-chain indexers or manipulating your price logic. But by utilizing per address block counters, literally just recording the last block number and address interact with us, we can throttle that spam and reject rapid automated abuse. It's a super cheap, highly effective sensor that keeps the whole machine running smoothly. Another major environmental hazard is front-running. Remember, the blockchain mempool is an incredibly transparent and noisy environment. Miners and automated bots can see your pending transactions and just reorder them for their own profit. Because of this, if an owner tries to set a new token price, a bot could front-run it, scooping up tokens at the old, cheaper price before the update even lands. To defend against this, we use commit reveal patterns, where the intention is hidden and delayed, or we utilize decentralized finality oracles, ensuring observers cannot act on secret intentions before they're securely processed. So this engineering blueprint maps exactly how each defensive technique acts as a documented contract between external callers and your code. Input validation provides clear revert reasons, state validation stops illegal transitions dead in their tracks. Fail-safe defaults limit damage when the unexpected occurs, and rate limiting severely reduces the impact of automated attacks. When you write a clear input contract and enforce it with precise reverts, auditors and users can genuinely trust the behavior of your system. Remember, a missing check isn't just a tiny bug, it's an undocumented precondition, practically begging to be exploited. So, we've built the unbreakable vault. We're checking keys at the door, making sure gears are aligned, and forcing everyone to pick up their own payouts. But we have to ask the ultimate defensive programming question. What happens if the vault is breached anyway? What if some crazy zero-day vulnerability gets exploited? Well, we'll answer exactly that in our next lesson on the Circuit Breaker Pattern Deep Dive, where we explore the ultimate emergency stop button. Until then, thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Make sure to head over to forge.college to learn more about this, dive into other amazing Web3 security topics, and keep leveling up your smart contract mastery. I'll catch you in the next one.